They told you that you're sick. They gave you a label: depression, anxiety, trauma. And with that label came something even more dangerous than the pain itself. Permission. Permission to stop fighting. Permission to stay in bed. Permission to treat your weakness as a medical condition rather than what it actually is: a moral failure. Niccolò Machiavelli was tortured. Not metaphorically, literally. They strapped him to a device called the strappado, where they hoisted him by his wrists tied behind his back, dislocating his shoulders, letting him hang until he passed out from the pain. And when he didn't confess to crimes he didn't commit, they did it again and again. And when they finally released him from prison, broken, exiled, stripped of everything, do you know what he did? He didn't check himself into therapy. He didn't medicate himself into numbness. He sat down in a small room in the countryside and wrote The Prince. He took his suffering and transmuted it into immortality. You're sitting in your comfortable room right now, with food in your refrigerator, a roof over your head, no physical threat to your existence, and you're telling me you're depressed. Machiavelli would look at you with something between pity and contempt, because you're not depressed, you're just weak. And weakness in a world that doesn't care about your feelings is a death sentence you're sentencing yourself to. Let me be clear. Clinical depression exists. Chemical imbalances exist. Trauma exists. But the epidemic we're seeing is not that. It's something far more insidious. It's a generation that has been taught that discomfort equals disorder, that struggle equals sickness, that the natural pain of existence, the friction of reality, is something to be medicated away rather than something to be conquered. You wake up and you don't want to get out of bed. You feel empty. You lack motivation. You scroll through your phone for hours. You eat garbage. You avoid your responsibilities. And then you go online and you find 1,000 people telling you that this is depression, that you're valid, that it's not your fault, that you need help. And you believe them because it's easier than the truth. The truth is, you don't have depression. You have a weak spirit. You have no purpose. You have built a life of comfort and safety, and now you're suffocating in it. And your body, your ancient survival mechanism, is screaming at you that something is wrong. But instead of listening to that alarm and fixing the problem, you're trying to silence the alarm with pills and therapy and self-help books that tell you you're enough exactly as you are. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology has forgotten. Human beings are not meant to be comfortable. We are meant to struggle. We are meant to face adversity. We evolved in a world of constant threat, constant challenge, constant necessity. And in that crucible, we became strong. But you live in a world where food is delivered to your door, where climate control keeps you at the perfect temperature, where entertainment is infinite, where you never have to face physical danger or real hardship. And your soul is rotting in this comfort. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, the Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He didn't say the impediment to action is a chemical imbalance that requires pharmaceutical intervention. He said the obstacle is the path. The suffering is the teacher. The pain is the fall. But you don't want to hear that, because that would mean you have to take responsibility. That would mean you have to stop being a victim. That would mean you have to get up, turn off your phone, face the discomfort, and build something. And building is hard. Being a victim is easy. Victims get sympathy. Victims get accommodations. Victims get to stay weak and call it bravery. Let me tell you what real depression looks like. Real depression is waking up after years of discipline, after building a life of meaning, after doing everything right, and still feeling the void. Real depression is a biological malfunction that persists despite purpose, despite action, despite strength. Real depression doesn't care if you have your life together. It comes anyway. That is illness. That deserves treatment. But you haven't even tried. You gave up before the fight began. You diagnosed yourself on the internet. You decided that your laziness is a disorder, that your lack of discipline is a disease, that your emptiness is anything other than the natural consequence of a life without meaning. Machiavelli would tell you that life is a war, and in war, there are no excuses. You don't get to sit on the battlefield and cry that it's not fair, that you're tired, that you need a break. The enemy doesn't care about your mental health. Reality doesn't care about your feelings. The world will crush you if you're weak, and it will do so without guilt. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Apply this to yourself. It is better to fear your own weakness than to love your own comfort. It is better to be ruthless with yourself than to be gentle, because gentleness without strength is just slow suicide. Look at what you're doing to yourself. You're medicating pain that is trying to tell you something. You're silencing the voice inside you that's screaming, "This is not enough. You are capable of more. You are wasting your life." And instead of listening, you're taking pills that numb that voice. You're going to therapy sessions where someone validates your stagnation. You're joining support groups where everyone agrees that you're a victim of circumstances beyond your control. But here's what no one is telling you. You are the circumstance. You are the problem. And you are the only solution. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz. He watched his family die. He lived in conditions that would break most people in days. And in that hell, he discovered something profound. Those who had a purpose, those who had a why, could survive anyhow. Those who gave up meaning, who decided they were victims of forces beyond their control, they died, not from the conditions, from the surrender. You're not in a concentration camp. You're in a comfortable prison of your own making, and you have the key. But you don't want to use it because unlocking the door means facing the world. And the world is hard. The world demands effort. The world will not accommodate your weakness. So you stay in your cage. You call it depression. You call it anxiety. You call it trauma. And you wait for someone to save you. But no one is coming. Machiavelli would tell you that fortune favors the bold, that waiting for rescue is the same as waiting for death. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what you call depression is just the absence of purpose. It's not a chemical issue, it's an existential one. You're not sick, you're bored. You're not traumatized, you're unchallenged. You're not broken, you're just soft. And softness in a hard world is suffering. You were designed to hunt, to build, to protect, to create, to struggle, to overcome. And you're sitting in a climate-controlled room, staring at a screen for 12 hours a day, consuming content that was algorithmically designed to keep you passive and afraid. And then you wonder why you feel empty. Machiavelli didn't have the luxury of existential crisis. He had real crises, and those crises forced him to become strong. But you need to create your own crisis. You need to voluntarily choose hardship. You need to fast when you're hungry, train when you're tired, work when you're unmotivated. You need to build the life that your biology is begging you to live. The Stoics called this voluntary discomfort. They would sleep on hard floors. They would expose themselves to cold. They would practice poverty, not because they hated comfort, but because they knew that comfort makes you weak. And weakness makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability, when you're not prepared for it, is what breaks you. You think you're depressed. But have you tried working out every day for 6 months? Have you tried eating clean for 6 months? Have you tried building something, learning something, creating something for 6 months? Have you tried going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time? Have you tried getting sunlight? Have you tried turning off your phone? Have you tried reading books instead of scrolling? Have you tried talking to people face to face? Have you tried having a mission that's bigger than your own comfort? Or did you just feel sad for a month? Go on the internet, find a label, and decide that's what you are now. Machiavelli would call that cowardice. And he would be right. There's a concept in biology called hormesis. It's the idea that small doses of stress make an organism stronger. Lifting weights tears your muscles, and they grow back stronger. Cold exposure stresses your cardiovascular system, and it adapts and becomes more resilient. Fasting stresses your metabolic system, and it becomes more efficient. But you're avoiding all stress. You're trying to eliminate all discomfort. And in doing so, you're making yourself fragile. Anti-fragility is not just surviving stress. It's thriving because of it. And you can't become anti-fragile if you're always seeking comfort. Your ancestors didn't have mental health days. They had survival days. And if they didn't get up, they died. And because they got up, you exist. They endured more pain, more loss, more suffering in a single year than you will in your entire life. And they didn't call it depression. They called it life. And here you are, with every advantage they dreamed of, and you're collapsing under the weight of comfort. They would look at you and not understand, because they knew that struggle is what makes life meaningful, that pain is what makes joy possible, that you cannot appreciate strength without knowing weakness. Machiavelli knew that a prince must be willing to do evil if necessary, not because evil is good, but because the world is not a moral place. It's a place of power, and power goes to those who are willing to endure what others will not. You want to stop being depressed. Stop calling it depression. Call it what it is, weakness, and then go to war with that weakness. Wake up earlier than you want to. Work harder than you feel like. Eat food that's good for you even when you crave garbage. Train your body even when it hurts. Build something even when you're tired. Talk to people even when you're anxious. And do this every single day for 6 months. No excuses, no days off, no accommodation for how you feel. And if at the end of 6 months, after you've built a body that's strong, a mind that's sharp, a schedule that's disciplined, a purpose that's clear, if you still feel the same emptiness, then maybe you're clinically depressed. Then seek medical help. But I promise you, most of you won't make it 6 months, because this requires you to stop being a victim. And being a victim is so much easier. Victims get to blame. Victims get to quit. Victims get to stay weak and receive sympathy. But Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for victims. He wrote it for rulers, for people who understand that life is a battlefield, and you either conquer or you're conquered. There is no middle ground. There is no safe space. There is only strength or weakness. And right now you're weak. But here's the good news. Weakness is not permanent. It's a choice you're making every day, and you can choose differently. You can choose to get up. You can choose to face the discomfort. You can choose to build. You can choose strength. And when you do, when you finally stop medicating your weakness and start forging your strength, you will look back at this version of yourself and you will feel something you haven't felt in years. You will feel pride, not because someone validated you, but because you validated yourself through action. Machiavelli died in exile, poor, forgotten by the world he tried to serve. But his words outlived empires. His ideas shaped nations. His legacy is eternal, not because he was comfortable, but because he was unbreakable. You don't need therapy, you need a mission. You don't need medication, you need discipline. You don't need understanding, you need accountability. You don't need to be told you're enough. You need to be told you're not, and then prove them wrong. Subscribe if you're ready to stop being weak. Not because I asked, but because you're done lying to yourself.